Thank you all for coming back. Thank you for being on our alumni panel. Like the other times we've done this, we've always tried to have sort of alumni panel discussions so we can learn from those who have been through it, and they can tell us what they wish we would have known when they were undergrads. And so we've invited 3 alumni here, and this time, the last 2 times we've done this, they've all been MSU alumni. This time we have 3 different campus ministries represented, so we might get some different thoughts because they've had different experiences on different campuses. So I appreciate the 3 of you giving some time to be here. I know one of you is going to be here anyway, but taking time to come here and visit and just share your thoughts about campus ministry from student perspective. So I'll start off just with introductions. So it's sort of name, rank, serial number. Who you are, what you studied, what your degree is, what college you went to, how you were involved in campus ministry, what you're doing now, that kind of thing. We'll let you go first, Courtney, and we'll just go across. We already know some from you, but...
Yeah, just again, my name is Courtney. I was at Truman State University in Kirksville, Missouri, 2015 to 2019. I studied Spanish and psychology there, and yeah, I was part of the Lutheran Student Fellowship group on campus. During my time, regularly had probably 25 to 30 students there, partnered with a congregation in town. So, hit the points.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Joe Nettleman. I went to MSU from 2007 till 11, and then MSU's med school out in Grand Rapids from 11 to 15, and then back at Sparrow for my last bit of training from 15 till 18, and then I've been over in Lansing since then. I had a chemistry major. I was involved in undergraduate. I was on a couple leadership groups in undergraduate. I was there and we had a student-led service for a while that I was kind of the second leader that kept it going, and then we passed it on. And then I was here 4 years, and then when I was in Grand Rapids, I still came back a couple weekends a year. In med school, I was, president of the CMDA chapter, Christian Medical and Dental Association out there during med school for a couple years. Kind of helped lead a Bible study. It was kind of non-denominational, and then I came back here, and I'm currently on a committee at Martin Luther Chapel for about 5 years now. I have a 4-year-old, or almost 4-year-old, that'll come in. You might see him at dinner.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I graduated Ferris last year, so I'm new to the alumni thing. I studied mechanical engineering and math, and I was president for a year of our LCMS chapter and vice president for 2 years, and most of that time was without a dedicated pastor to our church.
Okay. So we have 3 different campuses: Ferris State, Michigan State, Truman State. All public universities now. As I was thinking about this, one of the things that as pastors we want is some way to connect with students to get them to come to campus ministry. So how did you begin to get involved in campus ministry? How did you find out that there was a campus ministry? What led you to walk through the doors, come to the first meeting? Just begin, the first step. Go ahead, anybody.
We're going back in time, so I'll give you my best guess. So back when I went through at orientation at MSU, they had a religious preference form. I honestly can't say if I was reached out by Martin Luther Chapel or if, when looking around at the Lutheran churches, I picked that one. And then I think I saw them at what we call participation, or the welcome week, get to know all of the organizations, and then I rode a van on the first Sunday, and then joined choir, had a couple gatherings of people, so it was kind of I think I was reached out to, and then I also looked it up online and then joined.
Yeah, I don't remember my very first contact or awareness, but Kirksville's a small town. There's one Lutheran church within probably a I don't know, 40-mile radius or so. So obviously got connected through the church, but I do remember getting, filling out that form that I marked my preference on, and then the campus, I guess the campus group receives the information of here's all the students who marked that they were Lutheran. So I got a postcard in the mail, like before, I don't know if it was before orientation, but before I went to school, like the summer before I, moved there. So it had here's all the activities for Welcome Week each night, and here's the information about our church and campus house that was right across the street from campus. So yeah, got connected that way. I actually don't think I went to any of the events that first week because there was so much stuff going on, but I knew that's where I was going to go to church and where I was going to meet students. So yeah, got connected through that.
I met the girl who lived 2 doors down from me in my freshman dorm. Found out she was Lutheran on move-in day. Said, do you want to go to church together? She said, yeah, I have one picked out. And I said, cool. And then we showed up and there was an announcement about the group during church. And so the rest is history.
So the follow-up to that is, so that's how you started to get involved. What made you keep coming?
Free
So-
food.
I didn't know anyone else.
Say that louder.
Yeah, I think they had continuous events. Like I knew I could go to Bible study every week. I knew that there would be like brunch before or for breakfast before or lunch after church, like every day or every Sunday that I could keep coming to. And we had a sort of, I don't even remember what they call it now, a sort of mentorship program where an upperclassman like was paired with a freshman, and they I'm very good friends with my mentor now, and she was like, I pick you, we're gonna hang out and be friends and do Bible study together, and I'm gonna pick you up for church and that sort of thing. So that was really helpful to have an instant okay, someone else who knows what they're doing, and I'm just a freshman and I have no idea what's happening. So she kind of led me through that process of hey, are you coming to Bible study this week? Kind of that continuous contact was really helpful for me.
Sydney, what did you say?
I didn't know anyone else on campus, and making friends scares me. And I knew I didn't want to be friends with most of the people in my major because they all went out and partied every weekend, and I didn't want to do that. And so I stuck with the group pretty tightly, which was fine because St. Peter's really good at making you feel like you're part of a family.
Full disclosure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pastor's here.
I have no claim to the success and awesomeness. That's the best.
I've only heard good things about you, so.
We'll save the balance for later.
Okay.
Joe?
Again, I know I was interested in choir, and it turned out somebody in choir was on my floor. And then, Dan Winter, who was here, I know, drove the van that first day when we went through. And then, so I just got to know some people, and I was in the habit of church every Sunday, and then I joined choir, and then we started doing more and more. I know fall retreat, I got pulled in to help leading, so that type of thing.
How did you get pulled into helping lead?
I got asked, I think, to help. I had insight further on when I was on leadership groups the next years, where you had to ask people outside of the group and outside of your groups to help lead, and brought in the invite panel, and then we had a theme and kind of organized an overnight. I think I'd been at a lock-in type event here, and then got asked to come help with that one.
Your freshman year?
I think so, because I remember my wife was on that. She came to that same event. No, she was dating somebody else, but that stopped later. Yeah. So that all kind of happened pretty quick, but that was a while past.
So it sounds like the personal connections were the more pressing reasons to come back. Would that be accurate?
I think so. I definitely think so.
Thinking back over the 4 years or however long you were involved in campus ministry, what was sort of the most impactful part or most impactful aspect of your involvement? Event, component, whatever. What do you look back on as the most impactful thing?
For me, it was the spring break trips. So every spring break we did a mission trip, and I guess I should say, I don't know if this is common among campus ministries or if it was my specific university, but our campus ministry was really student-led. The church was there and the pastor was there, but during the week I didn't ever see the pastor interact with really many church members. There was a board of church members who kind of oversaw the campus house and like any problems we had. But otherwise, the group was really student-led. And so, that being said, our spring break trips were also student-led. They were heavily supported by the congregation. We would do fundraisers at church, and the members would essentially fund our entire trip. But we did service projects every spring break. So a student who their entire job on their executive board was to plan the spring break trip. So they would plan service events for us to do, find a congregation for us to stay at, essentially organize a week of service in whatever city we were going to. So really, and they started talking about that beginning of the year, in August, September when we start school, is looking forward for the spring break trip. And it really solidified a lot of relationships that we had because we spent a week together. We were, driving 10 hours wherever together. So, and again, fully student-led. So it wasn't like we had chaperones or anything. We were really kind of independently doing that ourselves. And so seeing just so many people excited about serving and doing that, spending our spring break doing that was really encouraging. Part of the reason why I became a missionary and am now serving at Synod. So I think for me that was it was a huge highlight of college in general, was going on spring break trips every year. Specifically service oriented, not party spring break trips, because I knew other people who were doing that, but we were serving all week and that was what I wanted to do, so it was great.
Did you lead one or organize one or just participate in it?
I did not. I wasn't the leader of any of them.
So was there no non-college student adults along on that trip?
Correct.
I have I'd say similar thing. We called them servant events. You know how student participation comes in waves? I was here at what I would call a pretty bumper crop year, where at one time we had 4 servant events one of those years, where they had an alumni trip that went to Haiti, and there's a lot, we always went to El Paso type thing, and so it was on the trip, there had to be somebody old enough to drive the van. I don't remember if that was 18 or 21, but it wasn't an adult. And then we would have about a week after, fundraising guidance to help how the fundraising went, and we'd fundraise and see. So that was always a very big, meaningful part, and it did help with the bonding to figure out who, to kind of make those relationships and move forward there. So that was a big part of where I was.
And again, all student-led?
There were definitely there was no adults on the trip. There was also, I guess, they were all adults, I don't know. There were no non-students on the trip. I feel like there was a lot of assistance from Pastor Dave in making sure we were in safe trips and actually having plans on what we're doing type thing. And so that was probably the biggest thing I think of. And then my second biggest was the student service. I just remember the band and the choir hanging out, just kind of practicing. And so, we were together 3 or 4 hours a week doing that type of stuff.
Sydney?
Mine is not necessarily service-oriented. A lot of mine was getting more theologically deep in our beliefs while I was in college. So I actually lived with 2 other members of our group. And so more often than not, we would leave Bible study, get to our apartment, sit in not usually chairs, just somewhere in the apartment, and keep talking about it. Especially, we had you and Pastor Robinson that come to the church and talk to us. And it was especially like after those kinds of meetings that we would just come home, and we were already at the church until like 10. We had class at like 8 a.m. the next day. We'd sit on the floor and just keep talking for like 2 more hours. And so not necessarily in the group, but I got to take what we had there and go outside of it with the people I lived with.
So how do you think, I'm just going to go through my list here, then we can come back to this real quick. How did campus ministry prepare you for post-college life?
I had slightly abnormal because I was asked to help with that student-led service. And so Pastor Dave would meet with me on a weekly or every other week basis to help push me in different sorts of leadership things that I struggle at. Where I led, but my wife also helped push me to get extra help type things. So it helped me with my leadership skills. So probably I would not have led the Christian Medical Dental Association at medical school had I not done that. And then I've used a lot of those strategies and kind of how I ask, having to learn how to ask and be quiet and not give ways out type thing in positive ways.
It mostly taught me how to build a community. I moved to a city where I didn't know anyone after college, and now my only friend in that area is from the church that I'm going to. We're working on building up the youth program there because there really isn't one post-COVID, but yeah.
Say the question again.
How did campus ministry prepare you for post-college life?
Prepare. Yeah, I kind of say similar to you, like having developed leadership skills. Like I did hold executive role in the organization for a couple of years, so being able to plan events and direct people and not be afraid to take leadership within the church, which also led to missionary service. So my Lutheran Student Fellowship really pushed me to dig deeper into my faith and to stand up for what I believe in and to not just be a participant, but actively seek out opportunities to share my faith, to learn more about theology, to serve my community, to, further develop the vocation that I was already leaning toward. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that answers the question.
Is there something that you wish had been part of campus ministry experience that wasn't? Is there something that you wish you would have done or wish had been more emphasized while you were in campus ministry that looking back you missed?
I wish we did more service projects. We didn't do a lot of them because we didn't have a lot of leadership. We were going through a really big transition in the church, so we were not necessarily the forefront of anyone's attention, which is fine. We get it. We did what we could. But I missed that kind of opportunity to do that, and I guess I still have it. It's just a little harder now that I have to take PTO and argue with my boss about why it's worth it to have me in the office for these days and that kind of thing.
Anything you wish had been part that wasn't?
The struggle is, while I was there, if you wanted it and you were willing to put the effort in, you could start it pretty much. And so we did a lot of that. So I don't see any parts that I missed in that front that I could see.
Yeah, I don't know. I really, really enjoyed my time. I learned a lot, made a lot of good friends. At some points, I do wish we had a little bit more connection with the local pastor, but he was serving multiple congregations, and like as the sole pastor of small town USA, it's, we were such an independent group that we didn't necessarily need him to walk us through everything, but it would have been good to have more Bible study or more of a structured something during our weekly student-led worship. Yeah, I don't know. That's just what popped into my head.
You've all three sort of talked about the role of non-students or pastors. And I hear some similarities. I'm trying to phrase this question. Sort of how would you ideally see the role of a pastor or other non-student church leader in campus ministry and students? What would be the ideal level of involvement, you think? What would you most need a pastor for? What wouldn't you necessarily need a pastor to do for you? And it's okay, you're not going to hurt any of our feelings. It's fine.
It's a hard
How do we
question.
say it nicely?
Yeah.
Say it not nicely and we'll forgive you later, it'll be fine.
I think it was very helpful for the structure and the continuity to have the pastor involved with this, at least in the student team leadership that I had. It was like we had a weekly check-in with with Pastor Dave, and you also had like a mini Bible, like mini group study, but also kind of planning for that semester, the next steps, but able to kind of give a little bit of that, okay, yes, we'll do that, who is heading it up, and trying to give a little bit of structure to it. So I think it helped provide the continuity that can sometimes wax and wane in student-led groups. I don't know if you guys know that it so like that's kind of where I found that you can give the continuity and give the teaching so that there's this extra ability to push people who aren't as social to help be the thing, that interaction helps somebody want to come back. So I guess to me that's like what I would say is the part of student leadership that the pastor can really help guide. Because I definitely didn't, like I saw that in medical school, we had that for my first year, and that role gotten rid of, so that was no longer there. And so then you just had to have students and one community member helping kind of guide it, and that definitely did not go as smoothly as it was when they had somebody behind the scenes helping make sure there was a little bit of, you're in charge of this week type thing.
I think accountability would have been nice, because when we didn't have like someone to come to, like we had a director of family ministries, but he was also teaching classes and had like 2 other groups, so he was always busy, and we didn't necessarily want to bother him with things, but we would have like these big ideas, and then we'd have like tests, and so then the big ideas would get watered down until they were something that like it doesn't even resemble them anymore. So like having someone to like share that responsibility with, and also someone that you can like, who can hold you accountable without having like the pressure of like, oh, they also have a test, would be nice.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We're all here trying to,
figure out.
be most effective in serving students, and so, your reflections as you were students fairly recently compared to most of us in the room. What was most effective, what was helpful, and what do you wish was there is information that we can use this year, right, in August.
I think theological guidance is another big one. As students go out into the world of college, that's a big time to fall away from the church, and we don't want that. So having a pastor who's open to conversation, and maybe he has time, like every Monday morning is just come, I'll be at the house or wherever you meet at the church, come ask me questions, or let's have a study on something if you're interested in something specific, or how do we address certain topics when other students ask you certain questions, or just having a bit more theological guidance through some crazy times. But I think also that doesn't necessarily always fall on the pastor too. I think a big part of that is being involved in the life and community of a congregation. So I would go, months or longer without ever having time to play with kids. And so I would love if a pastor could plug me into a family at a church, at the congregation, and say, hey, here's your family, go have dinner with them, or offer to babysit their kids, or different things to be involved in the life of a congregation as a whole, because sometimes it can get really long just interacting with peers it's good to have interactions with peers who are going through it with you, who are also in college, but you're going to get that no matter what. You're going to be in class with them, you're going to be studying with them. So having a bit of perspective outside of that, and having, maybe an older congregation member, maybe it'd be good to connect with them and hear their thoughts and their perspective. What was college like for you? And kind of as you're walking through that time in life, to have other generational conversations too is helpful.
Thank you. The involvement in the congregation, my sense is you all three come from different sorts of campus ministry settings. Talk for a minute if you want to, what your involvement was with the normal congregation that was around.
So
And
not
how
the
important was
campus,
it?
not the group of students, but the congregation.
Right. How important was it to have that interaction with multi-generations in a congregation as opposed to simply in the campus group or the student group?
I think it was, we had a lot of things that did have the interaction with different people. So before the year I went to college, Sunday supper at campus didn't exist, so they had it downstairs. And so community members would help provide that, so you'd be able to be with them there. For me, I got a lot of my interaction with non-college people at choir, or we had a summer softball team where I stayed one summer, so I got to play on the softball team, and it really helped kind of bond the people that were there. So that was kind of where I got a lot of my interaction, was with that type of stuff.
We mostly interacted before and after service. We had a pew that was just all college students, and the congregation knew. They would leave the pew open for us. And every time we came in, the ladies who sat in front of us always said good morning. And sometimes would comment on your outfit. Depends on the day. I miss them.
Yes.
I hope they're doing well. Or at different events, we would have auctions, dinners. We always did one of the Lent dinners. And that was usually our exposure to the congregation. Again, it was a weird time because we were transitioning through a bunch of stuff, but I feel for what we could do, we did pretty good. I ideally, we would be more interconnected. We were more interconnected when we first got there, and we still had like a pastor who's established there.
It helped make the
Yeah.
connections, yeah.
Like I used to go to congregant members' houses for dinner my freshman year, and then, you know.
Yeah.
Anyone in the group have something you want to ask our alumni experts?
I guess your comments reminded me of my sister and kind of things. When my sister was at Ferris, the big thing that she had a minivan, and so they got a minivan full of people going to that church.
Yeah, we would pick up people every week.
And so that's the type of thing is, like we had a
Little
van,
cars, though.
little cars or vans, so it's that whole thing of having some forms of
I was in the
rides.
wedding of the girl that I picked up every week.
Yeah, that's perfect. So that was kind of, I think having a ride or having food is helpful a lot of times.
Food is a big draw.
Lowering the bar of entry.
Other questions, comments, things that you want to know from a student perspective?
You all three were looking for a church, right? So what do you think we could do better to try to connect with the students that aren't looking for a church? Is it a pointless venture, or is there some way? I mean, I think I want both and. I mean, I want to
Yeah.
find ways to connect with the students that are looking. I don't want them to miss us. We're the only chapel at Eastern, and we're right across from the dorms. So, I mean, it amazes me how many students come in thinking we're the student center or an agency of the university, which I always take advantage of and just say, well, that's okay. Here's a sign here, and you can send you information. I don't know about the people that aren't looking out,
I do remember, I think it was my second year, I got a guy across the hall to join the band because he was playing, he just had a piano out playing. So, hey, so I don't even know if Brian has continued to go to church after he left town, but he was like, we got a lot of people where it was the students inviting, at least was what got a lot of us, or at least the people who dip their toe in the water, and then you meet them, make the connection, so it's less scary to come back. No.
I know at Ferris, our biggest issue is there are so many Christian groups, and the other ones are way more visible. And like that's not a problem; it's just harder to get people. So visibility is a big thing. They also have more campus support because they're bigger. They have more student draw.
we just, right now at our university, the university's turned against Christian organizations who don't change their policy to be more inclusive when it comes to sexual things. So we actually, as a chapel, host crew, we host InterVarsity, we host even the gospel choir most of the time. We host, we have about 1,200 students go through our building in a week as we're hosting all these Christian groups. And that makes it actually more difficult for us because people identify the church with those groups, and they're large groups, and we're small. So I understand what you're saying. I'm just thinking there's got to be a way, just trying to find these different ways to connect.
A lot of groups at Ferris did chalking, so they would just go on,
Oh, that's a good idea.
go out and like right when they were meeting and draw pretty pictures. If you have artists in your group, that makes it even better.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
We're getting close to time we need to break and head to supper, so any last thoughts that you want to share with your expertise with us learners? Not to put you on the spot, not putting you on the spot.
I think I've told everything I've got. It's all connections, trying to keep up and going.
Again, I appreciate you taking the time and offering to reflect on your time as students in campus ministry to help us process what we need to be doing. Thank you.